The Avatar universe probably has the most creative use of elemental magic in animation, and this is thanks to the wonderful grapefruity goodness that are the brains of Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino. We see benders like Katara grow from barely encasing a fish within a bubble to stopping literal rainfall and then bending the water inside the body of her opponent. Firebenders like Combustion, man literally bending fire with his mind. Toph Beifong casually creating an entirely new form of bending. And Iroh creating a means to counter a firebender's most lethal attack. Hi guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel, the Omniscient. Today, we're diving deep into some of the most fascinating and borderline the most insane feats pulled off by a handful of the most powerful benders from the Legend of Aang and the Legend of Korra. Before we get into every detail and the entire awesomeness that is this compilation, if you are a fan of Avatar and anything animation or TV, and you'll love to see more content like this, please support by clicking subscribe. It keeps me going. Yeah, it really is that simple. Anyways, geeks, back to bending business. Kicking off our list from number 10 Ming-Hua in every single fight scene ever.
I see you're having as much fun as I am.
I think a lot of people actually forget how big of a deal it is to be a bender with no limbs. And as one of the most dangerous water benders on the show, it's even easier to forget Ming-Hua's disability with how super fluid and fast she is all her fight scenes in The Legend of Korra. Born without arms, Ming-Hua is forced to constantly bend whip-like streams of water in place of hands during combat. This isn't even the most remarkable part of this feat, her water arms. Instead of limiting her, make her even more deadly, allowing her to make sudden, complex movements, somewhat like a dancing assassin. From her escape in The Legend of Korra's The Ultimatum, to easily maneuvering Eska and Desna, two of the most elite waterbenders in the series, to containing Mako and Bolin. And oh, let's not forget, she absolutely bodied Kaya, Katara's own daughter. Every scene that featured Ming-Hua in combat was visually pleasing. She was hardly ever bested. That is, until Mako. Turns out having water as limbs can get you, well, electrocuted. At number 9, we've got Iroh penetrating the outer wall of Ba Sing Se. I know a lot of people in the fandom will like to counter this with a no fair. He was amped up by Sozin's comet. But yeah, hold up. Amped up or not, this was a pretty outstanding feat for one single firebender. First off, the outer wall of Ba Sing Se was seen as impenetrable. Well, until the Fire Nation's drill. Different case scenario, of course. No bender had been able to get through the Earth Kingdom's capital's walls, and besides Iroh, the only other firebender I believe would have been able to mirror this catastrophic feat with the help of Sozin's comet would have been Fire Lord Ozai. Even with Iroh's raw power, he still had to carefully channel his bending and slowly build up the energy needed for a blast of that level. It is important to note that even with Sozin's comet, Ozai was still having a hard time breaking open Aang's Earth Sphere during their one-on-one. Iroh was just that guy. Still sucks that we never got a one-on-one between the Fire Nation brothers. Coming in at number 8, Ghazan soloing the entire Northern Air Temple. Ghazan, much like Ming-Hua, was a member of the infamous Red Lotus, a quartet of the most lethal benders in The Legend of Korra. An earthbender whose most used subset was lava bending, also one of the rarest subsets on the show. Ghazan was just a total menace. In Book 3's 12th episode, Enter the Void, Ghazan single-handedly sank the entire Northern Air Temple in a pool of molten magma. This episode was really an emotional roller coaster for me, because the Air Nation really could not just catch a break, man. So many years went into rebuilding their civilization, and boom, an entire temple is leveled by one earthbender. This really is OP level. Ghazan was able to alter the temple's foundations, destabilize its entire structure, and leave the terrains in a blaze of molten fire. Ghazan showed incredible strength and skill, as leveling a structure of the temple's size should have taken an army of at least 10 elite benders and a much longer span of time. Number 7 on our list? Well, he doesn't need any introduction. Amon was introduced as the Legend of Korra's first antagonist.
So, the Avatar has arrived early. It looks like we'll have to accelerate our plans.
Amon's power to take away a bender's ability to bend had initially come as a shock to the entire fandom, because this was an ability that was thought to be exclusive to the Avatar. Of course, he was later revealed to be a waterbender, and in fact, a bloodbender who had honed his skills to be able to permanently sever a bender's ability to wield their element. With or without this explanation, of course, Amon was literally god-tier status with this monumental feat, because, yeah, imagine bloodbending without the full moon. Very casual day feat for Amon. Benders feared him, practically trembled at his name. Well, except this guy. Benders worshipped him and looked up to him as a god, and, well, Korra just wanted to know what this guy was about. Well, she fucked around and found out. Amon was so OP that he evaded Team Avatar till the end, and even had to be MS worded by his own brother Tarlok. All that knowledge, All that power wasted. Pretty sad when you think about it. But yeah, a fitting end for a poser. I think it's pretty iconic that 3 out of 4 of the Red Lotus members made it on this list. Because at number 6, we've got Zaheer achieving flight. Zaheer was the first airbender to achieve flight in like, what? A million years. Okay, maybe not a million. Not even Aang and all his airbending master goodness could actually fly. Zaheer had actual jaws on the ground with this feat. It was confirmed that before Zaheer, the only other airbender in history to unlock the power of unassisted flight was Guru Lagima. He did this by detaching himself from his earthly tethers, much like Zaheer will later do, after the death of his comrade and lover Pili and the Legend of Korra. Ultimately, I still think that it was completely unrealistic that Zaheer was an airbender for what? A few weeks and could already hit the sky and move like he did. It almost felt like the writers were really just hell-bent on spitting on legacy characters for absolutely no reason. Not getting into that today, though. At number 5, Toph Beifong with the invention of metal bending. Toph is arguably the strongest earthbender at the end of Aang's journey, only tied with King Bumi. The two even had a brawl in the comic book issue, The Lost Adventures, which takes place somewhere in the middle of show's final episodes. Of course, there was never a clear winner because the battle had began to destroy surrounding landscape and had to be discontinued by Katara, Zuko, and members of the White Lotus. Since the entire battle was earth-based and Toph solely relied on earthbending, we really cannot predict how things might have been different if she did pull out her latest invention at the time, metal bending. In Book 2 of The Last Airbender, Toph miraculously invents metal bending. She is placed in a metal box and is believed to be powerless against her confinement. She is being transported back to her home when she reaches for the earthen impurities in the metal cage via her seismic abilities and wields it to her will. She practically tears a hole in the metal door of the cage and becomes the first metal bender in history.
I am the greatest earthbender in the world. Don't you two dunderheads ever forget it.
Coming in at number 4, the creation of
Bloodbending.
Bloodbending is the most feared and the most powerful form of bending in the Avatar universe, probably also the rarest. Bloodbending is a subset of waterbending created by Hamai of the Southern Water Tribe, and at the beginning of the franchise could only be done during the full moon, when a waterbender is at the peak of their power. This is until powerful waterbending bloodlines like Yakon from the Legend of Korra proved this theory false. Hama created bloodbending while under captivity in the Fire Nation. While being withheld from any primary water source, Hama begins to feel the water in other beings like the rats in her cell. She is able to tap into this water, control their body movements almost like a puppeteer. Truly terrifying. She hones this newly discovered ability and escapes from captivity by controlling the limbs of the guard assigned to her cell to set her free, becoming the first bloodbender in the series. Bloodbending posed an ethical challenge to the Four Nations and was since banned for being too dark and practically stripping its victims of their free will.
Congratulations, Katara.
You're a bloodbender.
Making a second appearance at number 3 on our list is Zaheer K-wording the Earth Queen. Throughout the Avatar series, airbenders had constantly been portrayed to be gentle, peace-loving people, and had a no K-wording policy as the monks had always passed down the teachings that every life was sacred. But I guess the Earth Queen's life was an exception. To be fair, Zaheer wasn't brought up by the monks, and in all honesty would still defy them if he was. His goal of eliminating all the world's leaders sadly had to begin with the vile, selfish, and prideful Earth Queen, Hao Ting. After infiltrating the Earth Queen's palace with the Red Lotus, Zaheer makes a demand that the Earth Queen refuses to meet. Disappointed, he uses a form of advanced, precise airbending technique to create a vacuum around her head, blocking out the surrounding air and suffocating her without physical contact. Zaheer quite literally bends all the air out of her lungs, causing her to choke and die from asphyxiation. At number 2 on our list, Zuko being faster than lightning. I think this is a pretty insane feat when we look at it closely, but surprisingly, no one ever really pays it much attention. During Zuko and Azula's Agni Kai, in the show's final episode, Azula blasts a stream of lightning at Katara. Of course, this was originally intended for her brother, but in her deteriorating mental state and her fear of losing, Azula dishonored the rules of Agni Kai and charged at Katara instead. The quick reflex, mastery of firebending, and intuition it should take for a bender without seismic abilities to sense a shift in the trajectory of a precise and swift element such as lightning should be overemphasized. Zuko's precognitive ability to discern Azula's switch in target is considered in my books a monumental feat. He manages to deflect most of the lightning's charge, but a fraction of it strikes him in his chest, almost K-wording him. Of course, the battle ends with Katara taking down Azula and healing Zuko, saving his life right back. Finally rounding off our list at number 1, Aang taking away Ozai's bending. So, as we all know, the air nomads were largely pacifists by nature, with reverence for all forms of life, and because of this, Aang had a really hard time coming to terms with taking out the Fire Lord. Aang, distraught and conflicted about the whole ordeal, encounters the last surviving lion turtle, who grants him the power of energy bending. Though it has its be warned moments, energy bending is a really OP form of bending and had not been used in generations. Aang became the first avatar to energy bend. This he demonstrates in the scene where he takes away Ozai's bending, the first of 2 instances we know of. Apart from Zuko and Azula's Agni Kai, I feel this was the most visually appealing and the second most symbolic scene on the show. The entire world of Avatar is one of the most creative animated universes in history, and even with Aang and Korra's timelines, there still exists a lot of hidden potentials to be explored by the creators in this universe. It took an entire week to come up with our list, because yeah, there are a lot of insane moments in both series, and narrowing it down to 10 was quite the chore. What are your most insane bending feats from Avatar? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, it's E, the Omniscient.